So every year, billions of dollars are stolen from older adults by dishonest caregivers and even family members. And the emotional and financial toll of this can be incredibly devastating and leaves victims feeling betrayed and financially unstable. So in this video, we're going to talk about who is most likely to exploit older adults financially, how to set up protections, what to do if the person's moving into assisted living, and how to have, a tough but perhaps necessary conversation with a loved one. I'm joined by Cameron Huddleston, who's a financial expert dedicated to helping older adults protect their money and their independence. And this is an episode you're not going to want to miss because financial security means financial peace of mind. And I wanted to focus on this topic today because financial exploitation of older adults is actually the fastest growing form of elder abuse in this country. And it's actually defined as the illegal use of an older person's money, property, or assets. But it is a crime and it can have devastating consequences for older people.
So, I am a longtime personal finance journalist. I am the author of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. And I am an editor at large at Careful, which is a financial safety service for older adults. I also was a caregiver for my mom for more than 12 years when she had Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. So now, who is most likely to commit financial exploitation?
So, there are two types of elder financial exploitation. There is elder theft, and then you have elder scams. Scams are committed by strangers. Elder theft, which is committed by people who are known to the victim, that unfortunately is more common. And those perpetrators are more likely to be family members than a caregiver, a friend, a neighbor, which is unfortunate and scary to think that your own family member could take advantage of you when you need their support most.
Right. And I think not so the one thing that or the example that I think of is that I had a friend of mine whose dad lived in a different state and he needed care at home. And so she went through all these links to make sure that she found a qualified, person to be like, just an in-home caregiver. And within 30 days, this person that she hired had run up his credit card like 30, $40,000. Um, so it's anyone that you may have trusted to come into your home, in addition to family members. But why do you think family members exploit their own relatives?
It's terrible. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but people will do crazy things for money sometimes. And so if there is, I mean, it could just be someone who's down on their luck. They've got a lot of debt, maybe, from credit card debt to medical debt. They've lost their job and they're desperate for a source of cash. And if they're in grandma's house and, the checkbook's sitting out, it can be pretty tempting to write a check to yourself or to take that credit card and buy things you need. There could be substance abuse issues. There could be mental health issues that could lead to this victimization. I mean, there are a whole host of reasons why someone might take advantage of a family member, and so this is why it's so important for older adults to figure out who their trusted family members are while they are still relatively young and healthy. You want to create that trusted circle and have conversations with them and put legal protections in place so that those not so trusted family members don't come in as your health and cognitive ability decline and take advantage of you.
Right. So what do you think are some red flags for this, that someone might be trying to take advantage of you? Um, I just that's just the question.
So, so we're talking about the red flags for the older adults themselves that someone's trying to take advantage
Yeah,
of.
and we could probably do it both ways. Like, what are some red flags for recognizing it from your own perspective, but then also recognizing it in a loved one if you're on the outside kind of looking in.
Sure. So, first red flag, a family member you have not had a lot of contact with or a good relationship with, they're suddenly showing up a lot more often now that perhaps you're at home alone. Perhaps, your spouse passed away, and perhaps you, or maybe you've been, diagnosed with something, or it's become more difficult for you to get around by yourself. And so now you're having to start relying on others more. And this nephew you rarely talk to is showing up at the home more. Might seem like he's really friendly and just is looking out for you, and maybe he is. But if he's asking for money, if he's offering to help run errands for you, just give me the credit card and I'll go pick some things up for you. Or do you need me to help, pay your bills? They're offering to do things for you that requires you to give them money, or maybe they're even asking for money. Hey, I'm a little short on cash this month. Do you think you could loan me some money to make my car payment? Do you mind if I borrow your car? Mine's not working right. If someone is showing up and asking for favors or asking for money, that's a big red flag. Or if they're asking for any sort of access to your financial accounts, that's a red flag. And you shouldn't just trust them. You should talk to your other trusted family members and say, hey, a nephew has been asking for money lately, or he's been offering to help out. What do you think about this? Get a second opinion before you let someone new into your financial life. So that would be the big red flag.
Um, right. And so what if you are not, maybe if you're like an external family member or you are the trusted family member, what should be some red flags if you're like from the outside looking in on your loved one?
Sure. So if you've got, again, if there are other family members who haven't been involved with your loved one's life and they're hanging around the house more often, or you hear, your mom, your grandmother, your grandfather talking about, cousin Sally, who's been involved lately. Okay, that could be a potential red flag. You want to ask questions and investigate. If your loved one is becoming withdrawn, you're calling and they're saying, I can't talk right now, or you're offering to come over. No, don't worry about it. You don't need to come over. Everything's okay. I've got things taken care of. If they seem to be coming, if they've become isolated, that could be a red flag that there's someone there who is trying to isolate them. If you are monitoring your loved one's finances and there are unusual transactions, you need to ask questions and figure out what are those transactions. If there are things missing from your loved one's house, if there's cash, jewelry, other valuable items that are missing, you want to ask questions to find out what's going on, any sort of change in your loved one's financial behavior or just overall behavior. These can all be red flags that there is someone who is influencing or trying to take advantage of your loved one.
All right. So in that case or before these cases even happen, what are some different things that people can do to protect themselves and their assets?
So, as I mentioned, you want to identify your trusted family members. Who can you trust to make financial and medical decisions for you if you can't? You want to identify these people, like I said, while you are healthy. So you're going to identify these people, you're going to have conversations with them and let them know, hey, look, I trust you. And as I get older, I would like to know if you would be willing to help out if I ever need help. So you want to find out, are they on board with this? Are they willing to, help you with financial matters? Are they willing to help make medical decisions for you? Are they willing to serve as the executor so that, when you pass away, that you've got someone who's going to handle the distributions of your assets? Have these conversations with the people you trust to find out what role they're willing to play in your financial life as you age. Then you want to get those legal documents in place. You want to meet with an estate planning or elder law attorney to draft a will or a trust that spells out who gets what when you die and names that executor or that trustee to manage your assets after you pass away. You want to make sure you've named a power of attorney, someone who can make financial decisions for you if you can't. You want to have a healthcare power of attorney, someone who can make medical decisions for you if you can't. All of these documents need to be in place and need to be signed while you are mentally competent. And so, if, for example, you have a stroke and you are no longer you're no longer mentally competent, then at this point, the ship has sailed. These documents cannot be drafted and signed. You are no longer competent enough to sign them. Someone is going to have to step up and petition the court to become your conservator or guardian. And that's when untrustworthy cousin Billy might step up and say, I'll do it. Let me petition the court to be your conservator and manage your finances for you in a way that you might not want them managed. And so by putting these documents in place while you are relatively young and healthy, you are in control. You get to decide who makes these decisions for you if you are unable to yourself. So make sure you have those legal documents. Make sure the people you've named as your power of attorney know where those documents are and can access them, because they're going to need to present that document to your financial institutions in order to make transactions and financial decisions for you. I mean, your son can't just walk into the bank and say, Mom, name me her power of attorney. I need to access her accounts because she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. He's got to have that document to show the bank, your credit union, your brokerage company. Okay, so you want to do that. You can, a lot of financial institutions will allow you to name what is called a trusted contact. If you have a brokerage account, then they are required to ask for a trusted contact. Not all banks will do it, but you can ask. And what this means is that if your financial institution suspects that there is any sort of financial exploitation going on, then they will call your trusted contact and say, hey, I've noticed some unusual activity. Is there anything going on that I need to know about? Is there a health issue, or is there cognitive decline? Do you think that your loved one could potentially be a victim of financial exploitation? So you can use that trusted contact system to make sure that your financial institutions are contacting someone you trust to alert them to unusual activity in your account. Another thing that you could do is set up a living trust and name a trustee who can manage your finances for you if something happens and you are unable to manage your finances yourself. And so you have a lot of legal options that you can put in place to designate, again, people you trust to manage your finances for you. It's a good idea to get a second set of eyes on your finances. Maybe that means if you've signed up with your bank and your credit card company to get alerts when there are transactions on your account. So you might want to add your son or your daughter's or another family member's email or phone number so that they can get alerts too, and they can keep an eye on your financial transactions, and they can call you when you've just purchased $1,000 worth of Best Buy gift cards, and they can say, hey, was that for the grandkids, or did someone ask you to buy those gift cards? It's a good idea, like I said, to get that second set of eyes on your finances. Creating that safety net is a really good idea. And the more protections you can put in place while you are still healthy, the more protected you will be as you age and your risk of exploitation increases.
Okay, all great suggestions and ideas. So now let's talk about when someone is going through like a life transition and maybe they're moving out of their, well, let me go back to another thing is when you have someone outside of the home coming into the home, one of the first things to do is to remove all financial information from that home. Like
Yes.
in my friend's case, I was like, if she had, taken, the credit card, remove the checkbook. And this particular caregiver, even within that short time frame, had was at the point of trying to make appointments to meet with the attorney to change all of that paperwork over to her and to have his pension like a trip, that she was the primary beneficiary. And so it's just frightening how quickly all of that happened. And then I think when she looked into the like contacted law enforcement, there was like nothing that they could do about it because you know so that's another thing. But if someone is moving from their own home into like an assisted living or into some type of group home situation, what are some of the financial risks, and risk to people's assets, um, moving into those types of environments?
Certainly. So don't let mom or dad take credit cards with them or debit cards with them. If you are in an assisted living facility or a memory care facility, typically your meals are going to be provided for you. So you're not going to be needing to go out and go grocery shopping. Your clothes are going to be washed for you. So you're not going to have to deal with that. And so what you might want to do in case they do need some spending money is to give them a prepaid credit card with a limited amount of money so that if someone gets their hands on that card, not a lot of damage can be done. Or if you want to, do the shopping for them, hey, I'm happy to do this for you. I'm happy to go pick up the things you need, setting up any bills that they still have to pay to auto pay so that they're not having to worry about making those payments and they don't need to pull out a debit card to make those payments online. And so, automating as many things as possible, taking those sources of money away from them so that other people can't get their hands on the money, like no checkbook, no credit card, no debit card. Again, only a prepaid debit card if that's possible. Again, not letting them take any sort of important financial documents, including that power of attorney document. You hang on to those important documents for your loved one, keep them someplace safe in your home, in a home safe. If possible, discouraging them from taking a lot of expensive jewelry with them. If you've got someone who's going into memory care, you might even be able to swap out that expensive diamond ring for a ring with, crystals in it, something that's
Yeah,
fake that looks similar
easy.
to the original piece of jewelry. My mother, and this was a mistake that I made with my mom. I mean, she had on two very expensive rings, both family heirlooms. And I thought, well, she never takes those off. I'm not going to try to take them from her. Well, one of them disappeared. Whether she lost it or whether it was stolen, I don't know, but it was gone. And so trying to limit the number of high value things that they're taking with them is a good idea. Just offering to keep them for them so that they're safe. All of these things can limit the risk of, losing valuable items and losing money.
Yeah. I actually do like the idea of giving someone like a prepaid debit card if they, still have, their cognitive ability, and, because you are trying to balance autonomy with the risk that someone would take advantage or exploit them, in some type of institutional community. Um, so it's a tough balance between, allowing them autonomy and freedom, but also making sure nothing bad happens
Right.
to them. Um, so, now what our last little topic here is, you know, how do is talking to talking to your family member about financial concern. So, how would you even bring that conversation up, without putting them on the defensive or making somebody feel uncomfortable?
The key to having these conversations is to allow your loved one to feel like they are in control. Like you were just talking about that balance of protecting them versus letting them remain autonomous. And so if you're having these conversations with an aging loved one while they are still independent, then the focus of this conversation is How can we make sure that you remain independent and in control for as long as possible? And to do that, it means putting some protections in place now so that you get to decide whom you trust to make decisions for you if you can't. Mom, dad, let's make sure that you have all these estate planning documents in place so that your wishes are in writing, so that you get to choose the people who can make decisions for you. And, mom and dad, this doesn't mean that if you're naming me power of attorney right now, that you're giving up your power, that you're giving up your control. That doesn't mean that I can go to your bank tomorrow and start managing your finances for you. If you feel uncomfortable giving me this much power right now, all you have to do is get this document drafted and put it someplace safe and tell me when and how I can access it. Because without the actual document, the bank's not going to trust that I am your power of attorney. And so that lets them maintain control. You could ask them to make a list of all of their accounts, their assets, where their important documents are, and let them know, hey, look, just make sure you have this information written down in case I ever need it. Just tell me again when and how I can access it. That lets them maintain control. And so the focus of these conversations is, I want to know what your wishes are. I'm looking out for your best interest. To do that, we need to make sure some things are in place so that your wishes are in writing, so that you get to choose your safety net. You get to choose the people you trust, and it's all in writing again. And so I think if you approach these conversations out of love and respect and letting them know that you are looking out for their best wishes, you're going to have more luck getting through to them. You certainly don't want to say, I'm worried that you're going to be taken advantage of. I don't think that you're making the best financial decisions anymore. I'm concerned that you're forgetting things. Of course, you don't want to do anything that's going to put them on the defensive. And so saying, I care about you. I love you. I want to make sure that if something happens, your finances are managed in a way that you would want them to be managed.
Yep. And you have a document that people can access on your website to help someone remember all the different account numbers and passwords and things like that. So how would someone access that?
So if you go to CameronHuddleston.com and you click on resources, I've got a free in case of emergency organizer that you can download and print out and use for yourself or give to your parents. I've got a scam red flag sheet that you can print out and give to your aging loved ones. They can hang it up on their refrigerator or by the phone as a reminder of what those red flags are in case they get a call or an email or a text message. And these are all free.
Right. And then tell people where they can find your book, because your book has some really great tips and strategies for having these conversations with aging parents, but also aging parents having these conversations with adult children. So where can people find your book?
So there are links to purchase my book on my website. Again, it's CameronHuddleston.com. Of course, you can find it on Amazon, just like you can find everything else. Other booksellers carry it too. If you were to go to BarnesandNoble.com, or perhaps even your favorite independent bookseller might have it or can order it for you.
Yeah, and it's called Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then I was just going to share some resources because the way you report financial exploitation is a little bit different than how you report scams. But if you or a loved one need assistance connecting to resources, or you want or feel like you need to report suspected elder financial abuse, you report that to Adult Protective Services, or APS, in your local area. And so there is a National Adult Protective Services Association, and they have a website that I'll have on the blog and in the description for this episode. But the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also has information about how you can report financial abuse. And then lastly, you could call the U.S. Department of Justice's National Elder Fraud Hotline at 833-371-8311. So any last minute comments, suggestions, questions before we finish up?
I would just like to reiterate that it is so important to have these conversations with aging loved ones, warning them of the signs of scams, letting them know that they can come talk to you if they ever get a suspicious call or email or text message. You want to keep those lines of communication open.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you being here with us today. But thank you so much for joining me today. And if you'd like to be a part of my community and learn more about aging, age-friendly initiatives, or Alzheimer's disease, you can drop by my website at MelissaBPhD.com. And there you can grab the free podcast insider guide. And we will soon be updating the website. So I hope you'll definitely stop by and check out all the great resources and offerings that are there that have been developed just for you. And all AgeWiseU members and podcast insiders are invited by email each week to join me for the live podcast recordings through Zoom. And now I'm actually doing new live monthly webinars. So when you stop by to grab your free guide, after that, you can keep an eye on your inbox for these special insider-only invitations. And if you found value in this episode, please hit the like button and share it with someone else that might find it helpful, especially all the great tips that Cameron, you've shared with us. But be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you're alerted when the next episode comes out, which is every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Until next time, be well.